So how do you make milk protein without a cow?
We're using fermentation, which is essentially the ancient art and science of converting nutrients from one form to another. It's the exact same biology that happens inside of a cow's udder, but we've ported it to a more efficient organism, which is yeast. And so in the end, if you want to picture what it looks like, it's sort of like a tank, the same way that you would make beer. You put yeast in it, you give them plant nutrients, and they turn it into milk protein. And though each and every little yeast cell inside that tank is doing the job of a cell in the udder of a cow, but we don't need the rest of the cow to control the environment. We don't need to spend our resources and our process inputs creating a 2,000-pound animal. It goes straight into food, less sort of animal parts that end up being waste, and less methane and other pollutants that go into the atmosphere. Those literal sinks of carbon instead become more food for people.
So what are you actually feeding the yeast though? What's the feedstock in the fermentation tank?
Right now, we're using sugar derived from corn because it's just readily available and it's everywhere and it's low cost. One of the great things about fermentation as a platform is that it enables us to use almost anything of the input for our process. And so we're going out there, we're talking to nonprofits, we're trying to figure out what would be the most sustainable source of carbon essentially for this process. And the answer is, there isn't a single answer. It ends up depending on where in the world you are and how the climate is, even that year, right? And so it's different all the time. And I think that's one of the strengths here because, a cow can eat grass or it can eat alfalfa or we can kind of force it to eat corn or soy or whatever it is, or other cows often. But with yeast, they're pretty comfortable eating almost anything you tell them to eat. And so in the future, that could mean something as sustainable as paper waste or wood pulp or grasses and weeds that grow really easily but that humans can't get any nutrition from. Well, now we can.
So how do you talk about the product? So you've got the dairy protein, if you like, and then you're adding other things to it to make milk. Is it milk? Is it dairy? Is it vegan? How do you talk about it?
It sort of depends on what you're looking for in the definition of each of those terms. And so, for example, when it comes to is it milk, I would say that in the sense of food, in the sense of you can put it in a glass of, have a glass of milk, you can put it in cereal, you can put it in coffee and make a nice latte. You can turn it into cheese using traditional, ancient, kind of age-old cheese cultures or yogurt the same way. So in all the kind of culinary applications, we're trying to make it so that it is milk and it sort of checks that box in terms of the flavor and in terms of the culinary experience and functionality. But if, we're not going to say that this is something that fully replaces mother's milk yet. I mean, there's a lot that we could do to make it sort of the world's ultimate infant formulation, but a lot of what's found in milk isn't meant for food, it's meant for infant nutrition. And we're really trying to separate those two things because a lot of those 10,000 ingredients found in cow's milk are really meant for a growing baby cow. And if anything, they're not helping for human nutrition. They can often hurt, they can cause allergies, they can cause inflammation. And so we leave them out because we're saying the part of milk people care about, 9 times out of 10, certainly for food, are these applications and these 6 proteins, not the other 10,000. As far as veganism, it is vegan friendly. My co-founder and I are vegan, and that's why we started the company. There's some nuance to the phrases though, because for example, I would call it dairy milk in the sense that it behaves like that and it cooks like that and it tastes like that, but it's non-dairy, in another sense too. And so we really have to figure out like how we talk about this in a way that is both appetizing but not misleading to consumers, and that's really the crux of
So what about the kind of reception that you've got? Are people kind of embracing this as greener and cleaner and kinder, or are you getting questions about Frankenmilk and Synbio milk and that kind of thing?
We actually really haven't been getting a lot of the latter. I was ready for a lot more, I'll tell you that much, is that we were ready for a lot of backlash, but believe it or not, people really understand and they get what we're doing, and I think the reason for that is we're doing sort of the right thing the right way for the right reasons, and those are the key. We're not making a redder tomato, we're not making a cuter dog using this technology. We're using genetic engineering, but we're doing it to make a product that is much better for the planet and it's better for your body. And it's something you can really feel good about without having to compromise anything about your experience of your favorite dishes.
So finally, what is your business model? Are you looking to become, a consumer products company and sell, finished products using your milk, or are you looking to partner with a CPG company, or maybe even just license your technology?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think the short answer is a little bit of all of the above. From our perspective, so let me first say we need to answer that question, and we're still young, we're still figuring out what which of the many options in front of us make the most sense to start with, but we know that we want to be doing all of it to a certain extent. And I think from the perspective of impact, and that's really why we're getting up in the morning, it's important that as many people and as many companies as possible are able to make milk this way. It doesn't work if we're the only brand out there that is able to use this kind of innovation. And so that is going to mean that we need to be able to license our technology. It needs to be something anyone can do within reason. And so licensing the technology is one part of it, and using the ingredient that we're developing, the functional animal-free milk protein that behaves exactly like casein, because it is casein, we need people to be able to use that ingredient. And so now it's not just a technology, but it's also an ingredient. But in order for people to use that ingredient, or even want to use that technology, they need to know what the heck it is. And they need to not be scared of it. And something new is inherently kind of scary, I get that. It's only by talking about it and by laying kind of all the details out there that we can really normalize this concept for people. And so I think that requires a brand that really speaks to people in terms of like your everyday life. You're at the grocery store, you're cooking a meal, what cheese do you have with that wine, what pairs well, right? And the answer, those should all have real answers, and it shouldn't just be sort of this industrialized thing. It needs to have feeling and emotion, and that's what food is all about. That's why we're doing it, is we love food.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.